Hi, I thought I'd do another one of these eBay type videos of how to search for and find, in this particular case, a 6.5 digit class multimeter, because this one was prompted by David too, who came to me the other day and said, hey, I'm looking for at least a 6.5 digit multimeter from home. Where can I pick one up for, a reasonably cheap price? So I thought, this is not specifically for David. In fact, he has a bit more exacting requirements, but I thought, hey, it might make an interesting video, and people seem to like these eBay type search videos. So let's get into it. We're going to look for a 6.5 digit multimeter, secondhand, of course. We're not talking about brand new multimeters because, hey, they're going to start from $800-900, something like that. So we're looking something at, like the up to say $500. So we'll see what we can do. Now, I've done a video which I'll link in. It's about battery ionic resistance, but it kind of shows you the advantage of having a 6.5 digit meter on your bench. And if you're serious about electronics, you probably should eventually try and get yourself a good bench multimeter. You can get 5.5 digit ones, and I've actually done a video on that, the best bargain eBay bench meter. I came to the conclusion it's probably the Fluke 8842A, but there's others on the market. But that's a 5.5 digit meter, and 5.5 digits is nice, but it's nothing special. You can get relatively cheap handheld multimeters that are 5.5 digits, but really, when you're talking about bench meters, 6.5 digits and up. Of course, 7.5 digits is a class in itself, but 6.5 digits, incredibly useful. So that's what we're going to look for here, and you can't really get those in handheld. In fact, there's only one on the market that I'm aware of in the 6.5 digit class, and we might have a look at that. But yeah, they're very useful bits of kit to have in your lab if you can get one. So let's take a look at this. Now, we'll have a look at eBay, of course, but there's other places to get them, which we'll also have a look at. But I'll link in this down below because this is the multimeter spreadsheet, and this is fantastic. This is maintained by, sorry, I can't pronounce. He's a super contributor on the forum. I can't pronounce his username. He's maintained this absolutely brilliant spreadsheet of not only handheld multimeters, but if you go down the bottom, look at the amount. Isn't this just sex on a stick? This is just gorgeous. This is unbelievable. If you go down here, and included all the photos as well. Unbelievable amount of work. Hats off, seriously. But if you go down here, we've got bench multimeters, and here's a whole bunch. It's not there's a few available that aren't on here, which you might take a look at. But yeah, basically, 6.5 digit ones down here. They're in green, I think, for the 6.5 digit or above. And it's got various accuracies. When you're talking about a 6.5 digit multimeter, you're looking at the 0.005% class instrument as opposed to the 0.05% class instrument, which you'll get on a 4.5 or a 5.5 digit handheld or low-end bench multimeter. And 0.005% is equivalent to 50 ppm. So sometimes, like here, for example, up in the Flukes, you might see the accuracy specified in ppm and stuff like that, like 35 ppm, 20 ppm, and things like that. It's just 0.005 or 0.003, for example. And we won't go into which is the best multimeter in terms of specs and both short-term and long-term specs as well, because they vary. You'll typically have a 24-hour specification, then you'll have a 12-month specification, you might have a 2-year specification, all that sort of, stuff. So we won't go into which one's best. We'll just sort of, bum around and see what the current prices are around for a 6.5 digit meter and see what we can pick up. This is obviously a video that could be completely obsolete by the time I release it because the auctions will be finished and stuff like that, but hopefully it gives you an idea of how we can search for and find these things. Now, we use eBay here as a place to find these things, but that's not the only place. And of course, eBay varies from country to country, and getting stuff, say here in Australia, a lot of US sellers, for example, won't ship to Australia. So, often supply is quite limited, and there's reshipping services and things like that. We won't go into all that sort of stuff. So, sorry, it's going to vary greatly from country to country, but eBay's not the only place you can find it. Craigslist, for example, example, which is not a big thing here. Our equivalent here might be Gumtree, for example, here in Australia, but I don't think multimeters like would rarely come up on there. Other things, other test equipment, auction houses. Now, here's one which is Equipnet, and they're a big auction house that get lots of huge clearance items for, you know, like Nokia Labs shuts down, Motorola shuts down a lab or whatever, and they get all their gear for their lab, and they put up hundreds and hundreds of items. They're just clearing out a whole lab, and they advertise on the EEVblog forum a lot, and we post those on the EEVblog forum. There's a buy-sell section on the EEVblog forum, which you should check out. Anyway, here's just their latest one, which is coming up, for example, and this is, actually, I'm not sure who's shutting down, but it's a leading semiconductor RF products and fabulous design firm, you know, catalog. And there's just tons of stuff on here. There's lots of these communication analyzers, and there's tons of, like, it's just like countless. Okay, there's oscilloscopes, and there's all parts of nice power supply there, power analyzer, balancers, and, like, you know, scopes and all sorts of, like, you know, it's just incredible, right? Really, and you can get fairly decent, 224-65Bs, analog scopes. Oh, there's a whole bunch of them. Unbelievable, right? So these are a great place, and there's many others. If you know, of course, US, and each country will have their own specific auction houses, of course. US with their huge defense spending budgets and their huge tech companies and stuff like that. These places are always closing down and auctioning off the whole lot. They're moving their lab, they're shutting down, doing whatever, merging with another company. An entire production facility is surplus, things like that. So, you know, they just get tons of things, but there's many auction houses like this. Some of them will also resell on eBay and things like that. But if you know of any that are specific, you know, that have specific websites that you have to go to, for example, then please do that. This one, for example, is in the US, the location, but it's also got Finland. Here we go, there's some in the UK, fab in Finland, there we go, Great Britain, Wales, USA as well. So there's a whole bunch of different locations in the one auction. But please post down below if you've got your favorite test house. I know a lot of people will go, oh no, I'm not telling anyone, you know, shh. Because I get great bargains there. The more people that know about these sort of places, the worse it is for me. And that kind of happened to the Australian one, which is Grays Online, for example. Like, you know, a decade ago, this used to be like a really good place to get cheap used test gear here in Australia. It was the #1 place apart from eBay, but now it's just fairly generic. Like if I search for multimeter on there at the moment, there's not much. So generally you just go into the categories down here, manufacturing, engineering, and there's lots of companies like medical and pharmaceutical companies will close down as well, and they will have, you know, they often have requirements for multimeters and oscilloscopes and other, you know, like Schmico power supplies and stuff like that. Laboratory and biotech, for example, they've got a specific engineering and tool making. But generally, a lot of these auctions are really bid up by a lot of the eBay test equipment merchants, right? So they'll buy them cheap on here in bulk because they'll buy tens of thousands of dollars worth of stuff, right? And, you know, they've got huge budgets. They buy big pallet loads worth of stuff, and then they test them, or they just simply resell them, flip them on eBay for a profit. And guilty, I've done that. As you've seen in previous videos, you know, I've scored stuff from various auctions and then, you know, like powered them up, and there's an art to doing that. And you can make a full-time business actually flipping test gear like this. I've been doing it for longer than I've been doing the blog, actually. I used to enjoy buying stuff from overseas because a lot of people in Australia, for example, are very hesitant to buy from an overseas seller because they think they're going to get ripped off or whatever. So I would take the risk of buying the stuff from overseas, importing it here, and then, you know, checking it out, doing it up, cleaning it up, whatever, testing it, and then reselling it on eBay Australia, especially for like a big heavy bit of kit. For example, that costs a lot to post. So I'll resell it here and I could double, triple my money easily. So, you know, there's a lot of people making a full-time living doing stuff like this, but that's gone the way of the day. Like Grays Online, like, yeah, there's too much competition now. Another one might be Mannheim's here in Australia, for example. I think there's another one in Melbourne, things like that. As I said, if you've got a favorite one, down below. But anyway, now I'll be using ebay.com here. I might go to the Australian one because if you go to your local one, then you'll get local prices, including like shipping, and you'll only find ones that companies that are willing to ship to Australia. So why is it done test leads? Right, we just search for multimeter. The first thing is eBay categories in different countries vary a lot. So the subcategories are a real pain in the butt, and they're always changing. So what you can do is often to find a category, you might go into here, for example, then be business and industrial, test, measurement and inspection, test meters and detections, and multimeters. Now you can either search site-wide, and that's a good way to like just broadly search first, or you can go specifically into the category. So you can click on the category, so you're only going to get multimeters, for example, but you can often get a lot of bargains in a different category, because people like who don't know what they've got, it might be a deceased estate or something, they're trying to sell off the gear and they have no idea what a multimeter and oscilloscope is, so they might list it, and they might list it in the wrong category. They might spell oscilloscope incorrectly, multimeter incorrectly, they might spell a brand name incorrectly, like all sorts of stuff. So there's an art in searching eBay for you know, like incorrect names and things like that, and you'll have much less competition if you do that sort of stuff. I generally would never break things down into a brand category like this, like, you know, Fluke, X-Tech, because most people who list stuff will not bother to tick off these check boxes when you actually list something. So that's a very poor way to do it. So don't rely on that sort of thing. Now, the best way to actually approach to getting stuff on eBay is to do your research on what particular model numbers that you're after, that you're happy to actually get. You might be happy with any 6.5 digit meter, right? And there might be, you know, 15 different like recent and older model numbers that you're happy with. So you've got to do your research, find the exact model number, and then you might search for a particular model number. But first of all, we'll just do a generic search here to see what turns up. Now, once again, I wouldn't do bench top. I wouldn't select that form factor category. That's bullshit. But one of the first powerful tools you want is used here like this. You can also click seller refurbished as well. You can actually do multiple ones. And then once again, yeah, you can use often 4 parts not working as well, because you can pick up lots of bargains when they're marked as 4 parts or not working, because a lot of sellers, because if you sell it as used, as a seller, you're actually liable that it should actually work. So if it doesn't work and the customer complains, then they can potentially get their money back through eBay. eBay are very good at giving you your money back if you complain about something. So often a lot of sellers will simply sell it as 4 parts not working, even though it's actually working. But there's an art in also trying to pick, and a bit of a gamble, a lot of a gamble actually, in trying to pick units that work. And of course you can get manufacturer refurbished, seller refurbished is another one, and you know, it's really hard to drill. There's so many different permutations and combinations of different categories and search terms and everything. It's just, you know, crazy. Anyway, we're searching for used multimeter. Okay, so, and you might have a price range. A price range is generally a very good way to narrow it down, or you might search for, well, you might search for highest first, for example, because like there's so much low-priced crap on there, and we're searching for a 6.5 digit meter. So really, you want it, you know, you might often want to reverse price search. Like here's an Advantest one, 8.5 digit multimeter, right? It's absolutely killing it, but it's $2,700, right? And then there's Keithley source meter, and there's a HP, you know, the classic 3458A, fantastic. You know, it's a bit above our budget, so you can like limit that. Let's say we wanted, you know, $700, something like that. We can search. This is eBay US for $700. Oh, look, here's a 3457A. I've done a video on the 3457A. Very nice meter. I don't think that's actually on the spreadsheet here. The HP 3457A. No, it's not. Okay, that one's not in the spreadsheet. So that's a good example. That's a very nice 6.5 digit. I think you can even extract 7.5 digits from it if you get it remotely via the GPIB. So yeah, that's a really nice bench multimeter, but it's large. It doesn't weigh much, so shipping is quite reasonable cost. Things like that. I don't know whether or not that's a good price. You'd have to drill down into 34. I think when I got mine, I paid like only a couple $100 for it or something. I got it a real bargain. A lot of the art in eBay is waiting, patience. But let's say that we were happy. Let's say a 3457A, okay? 3457A. Now, often you may not put multimeter, you might put DMM. So let's say search for 3457A. If anything else weird comes up, stuff like that. Anyway, when you look, there's lots of them. There you go. Look, parts only, right? There's a parts only one. And once again, you may not, if you search for HP, you may not get it. You might search for Agilent, for example. I'm not sure if they're selling it under the Agilent brand, but just be careful which HP, Agilent, Keysight. You might want to search for all three, for example, if a company changes names. 650, stuff like that. Anyway, if you want to find out what prices are worth and don't pay too much, go down to sold items here, okay, and click on sold items. Look, somebody got a 3457A 6.5 digit meter tested for $170. Buy it now, right? Now, it looks like that's the going rate, actually. So that's $650. That was just a crazy price, right? $99 for parts or repair. Good, great shape, for example. And the other thing is, a lot of all these high-end meters, all the brand name ones, they're very well built, very reliable. So generally, if it powers up, and especially if it says tested, something like that, it doesn't have to be calibrated, you can be fairly confident, still a gamble, but fairly confident that it's going to meet its specs, because these things are really good, and they've got, you know, really good long-term drift characteristics. The 3457A I got was bang on against all my references here. It was just, yeah, it was absolutely amazing. I've since sold that one, actually. So there you go. Right off the bat, you've got 6.5 digit multimeter. You don't need to pay more than $200 for that, including post. Oh no, there's $99 shipping. I don't, you know. Anyway, is that a, yeah, but for a couple $100, there you go. You can get a fairly nice, if you don't mind the bench space and stuff like that, and the fact that it doesn't have USB, it's only got old school GPIB. There's a fair bit of variation at the price here, but a lot of the test equipment houses, they will charge more for them because they might include reseller calibration, for example, stuff like that. But, you know, look, you can get a decent, it won't power on, but hey, right off the bat, a couple $100, 6.5 digit meter. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Right, so what you want to do, once you know, you get a 3457A, and make sure that there's, you know, that part number doesn't show up and like it's not a car part or something, you know, an engine part or some other weird object that shows up all the time. If it's a fairly unique number, be as generic as you can in the part number. And then what you want to do is you want to save this search, okay? You need to be logged in. I don't, oh yes, I am logged in. Oh, I just say, usually it pops up with the box. eBay US might work different. Yeah, here you go. Here's eBay Australia, for example. Unfortunately, 3457A comes up with knives and all sorts of crap. So we're going to have to go multimeter. So this is the Australian website. There you go. So once, if I knew I wanted that particular one, for example, I would tick worldwide. If you're in another country, definitely tick worldwide like that. Okay, so I can get one. Look, I can get one, or best offer, 280. Always make an offer if they've got best offer there. If they're not, you know, something that's very rare and it's not going to be snapped up instantly, you know, like pre-owned Agilent. Okay, let's just go in and have a look at this one here, for example, right? The postage is quite reasonable, $53 US, but you pay import charges these days because the Australian government changed their rules. You know, you check the feedback of the seller, Earth Enterprises. They don't sound like, they sound, they're in Loveland, Colorado, so they'd get, that's where the HP facility is. So that's, you know, headquarters. So they might get all the good stuff. So you might be able to check, see their other items, for example. Yep. They're a test equipment specialist, okay? So they're going to do quite a reasonable job. And if you see that it's powered up like this, you want to see photos of it powered up and stuff like that. Make sure it's in good nick. And powers up and runs without issues. Cannot test further. feel free to message, okay? So you take a chance, it powers up, it looks like it's displaying something, you know, you can get ones that have tested in it, but, you know, if this one was particularly cheaper than the ones that have tested on it, then, you know, you might take a chance on that. And I'd be, you know, 90% confident that it'd probably work, 80, 90% maybe, you know, but you are taking a bit of a gamble. What's going to happen now with the saved searches is every time a listing pops up that meets the worldwide specification here and is used with that particular search term, I will get emailed instantly. So if one pops up and people list it for a cheap price because they don't know, you know, it might be 50 bucks, buy it now because they have no idea what it is, and you can snap up these bargains. And if you wait 6 months or something, you know, if you're patient, you can, you know, nab some real bargains. Now, one brand I don't see on the list here is Philips, and you can often get Philips before they were bought out by Fluke. They made some, you know, quite reasonable gear. I've done some stuff on that before. So let's type in PM2534, which is a 6.5 digit meter, and bingo, look at this, pre-owned, here we go, 119 US, buy it now. This is a 6.5 digit meter. Its specs may not be as good as some of the others, but it's 6.5 digit resolution, great condition, pulled from a working environment, purchased from a collector's estate, recently passed away, right? No further testing done. Pretty typical. Shows that it powers on. They obviously don't know how to test it because this Twin Pickers 247, it's one of those pickers. You know, I love the pickers show on the US pickers only. The other ones really suck. Anyway, that's a 6.5 digit class system multimeter, but unfortunately it doesn't have the front panel terminals. But if you were happy with that, with your test leads coming out the back, then, you know, that's fine, right? For a 6.5 digit meter, that powers on, you know, once again, I'd be 80-90% sure this thing would actually work, right? And it pulled from a working environment, 120 bucks, right? At $20 delivery, right? So for less than 150 US dollars, you can nab yourself a 6.5 digit meter. Beauty. Look at these are 250, stuff like that. Sold items, what have they been selling them for? $45. Somebody got a 6.5 digit meter for $45 with the front panel. Oh, parts only. Sorry, no, it's a part. I sold for parts only. Unit has a pictures along with the item condition. Sometimes they don't. You got to read the detailed descriptions very carefully because they're all over the shop. Liberty Test. That sounds like a commercial test equipment merchant. You know, 2,000 feedback. You know, you can like. They may be bullshitting a little bit, like, you know, it's like sold as is or removed from a working environment when it, you know, it doesn't work at all. But generally, the larger test equipment eBay ones are, you know, fairly genuine if they, you know, couldn't be bothered testing it or whatever. Anyway, somebody nabbed that for 60 bucks and that one could work. There you go, 461 yen. Worldwide saver for international shipping. Yes, it can be ridiculous. Anyway, so... But of course, that's maybe it's picked up that I'm in Australia. Is it now? I don't know, but it's nuts. So let's go in and check out this $75 jobby here. Here we go. Yes, I know about middle clicking the mouse, but I like to right click because it annoys people. Completely tested. Completely tested. 100% working. Completely tested. $99. That comes from Montreal in Canada. Wow, somebody picked up a 6.5 digit meter for like 75 US dollars plus postage. Wow, fantastic, right? Beautiful. And, you know, guaranteed, I'd be surprised if that doesn't meet its specs. When you get if a unit is working, you can almost be 95% plus confident that it's going to meet its specs. These things don't really drift much. So there you go. There's a Philips one, fantastic, which wasn't even on this spreadsheet here. You have to know what to look for in specific model numbers and do your research and stuff like that. Now, a lot of new ones on here, like these Rygols, you wouldn't generally search for those secondhand. You know, you're looking for an old Keithley, you're looking for an old Fluke 8846, A, for example, and of course the classic HP 344001A, because we did that over here, didn't we? Did I do it? No, I didn't do it. Sorry. Oops, I forgot to do this. We can search EquipNet here, site-wide, for all their auctions, for example, for multimeter. It's anything from $8,000 to $1,780 bucks. Oh, well, that's, you know, 8010. There you go. There's a couple of 34401A 6.5-digit meters. These are classic. Now, you can actually search within the auction down here, but for some reason, it's not working at the moment. It was before, but anyway, we can search for, this was in the current one. There you go. The starting bid is $100 for a lot of 2 Agilent 34401A, absolute, like, industry standard stalwart 6.5-digit bench multimeter. Brilliant meter to have. This was the previous meter that they sold for, like, I don't know, 15 years at least. It was the industry standard before the 34461 or 60 series came out, 34461A or 60A, which is, if you're buying a new meter, you can get one of those for like $900 brand new. Very nice. So if you can pick up a 3401A, well, let's go into eBay and have a look. For our venerable 34401A, they're dime a dozen. What have they been selling for? Because we're searching, you notice it's green here, we're searching sold items. They're still selling for 300 bucks. If you're lucky enough to pick one of those up for 100 bucks, pick up a couple and then you can flip it on eBay for 300 bucks. Easy, right? So, but of course, you've got to be in the area to pick up. A lot of these auction houses, they will not ship them. You've got to either arrange your own shipper to come in and pick it up or do whatever, and they won't box them up for you. And there's a lot of details that goes into those auction houses. Whereas, you know, eBay sellers, they specialize in boxing them up. And your professional test equipment sellers, they will like vacuum form pack them and properly like that. That's one of the dangers of getting a bit of, you know, relatively delicate test equipment from just some, like, you know, loan shark cash converters type stuff like that. They won't know how to pack them properly. You can break knobs and you can break off handles and connectors and completely damage the thing. It gets shocked. But your proper test equipment sellers, they'll often vacuum form them or foam peanut them correctly, and if they know what they're doing, they'll pad the connectors and extra foam and stuff like that. So there's some value to be added by a good surplus test equipment seller on eBay. They're selling for $300. I still think they're a bit pricey. I was hoping the prices would drop on the 34401As, but they still seem to be very popular. That seems to be going rate. So if you got one cheaper than that, you would have been very lucky. See, there's one like 100. Oh, Israel. Israel, is it our favorite? There's a whole EEVblog forum thread on this, or a couple of them. Yes, Surplus Tech Mart. Surplus Tech Mart is an infamous Israeli, I don't know what it is about the Israelis, but this famous seller, and I think there's one or two others in Israel. I don't know where they get them from, but they look like they've been run over by a tank. This one looks in great condition, actually, comparatively. Oh no, look, it's missing the back. It's missing the back back cover on that. I've never bought something from them, but be incredibly careful. Like they will sell stuff that is literally being crushed. And they will, like, there's famous photos going around of completely crushed instruments. Like, anyway, it's hilarious. It's almost meme-like. Now, of course, some of the Keithley ones are very good. I've done a video on the 2015, for example, the 2015 THD, which measures total harmonic distortion. If you can pick one of those up. But generally, the Keithleys are very popular because they have lots of fanboys. For example, Keithley 2015. We don't want show results from all sellers. Do I have to add THD in there? There you go. Oh, no, there's zero. Keithley 2015s, really? On eBay? There's a 2001, which is a 7.5-digit multimeter. See, if you're after 7.5, parts only. Nah, there you go. You know, I like these older Keithley style ones, like the 196, for example, in great working condition. It's in working condition, but it's listed as parts only. There you go. Like that, you know, an old venerable bit of kit, lead readout like that, still be quite nice. In working condition, but it's in the category 4 parts not working. $115 US. Buy it now or make an offer. A few $100 to spend. There's no reason not to have a 6.5-digit meter on your bench, really. It's a very handy bit of kit. But generally, you are going to pay more for the Keithley stuff than you will. So you might be looking for a more obscure, you know, a Tongi. That's a new one, actually. So you won't pick that up, I don't think. And when they're rebranded, the Tektronix ones, for example, are actually rebranded. What one did they rebrand there? The DMM 4050. 4050, are there any Tektronix? Yep, they're a fluke. They're just a rebranded fluke, and that's $1,100. It's quite expensive. This one's parts only. Search for lowest first, because it's a fairly... Look, 400, there you go, 6.5 parts repair unit. Oh, there's lots of parts repair units on there if you're keen, but I generally wouldn't pay $500 on a parts repair unit and fingers crossed hope I can fix it. It's quite a significant gamble. Don't assume that you're going to be able to fix anything. Secondhand bit of kit, it might have an obscure part, unobtainium part that doesn't work or whatever, but yeah, like you might have more luck with your more obscure brands like the Philips, for example, Yokogawa ones, right? Yokogawa units, Advantest, which I've done videos on before. They have more than, I think they have more than the 6871E there, R6871E. R6871E. For example, Advantest, $299, right? That's a pretty schmicky unit, right? I think if you go check the specs on that, I think you'll find that's a really nice bit of kit. And once again, they don't show it powered up. That one looks like it's been a bit abused. You want to see it powered up. That one comes from the Philippines, so stock parts, PH2, I don't know them offhand. Used, cosmetic condition, 8? Really? You'd give that an 8? For cosmetic condition? Oh, yeah. It's been a bit generous. From memory, that's a real specky piece of unit, but I wouldn't go for one that doesn't show it powered up, for example, unless it was a reputable surplus seller, but they're going to like show you it powered up because they know how to sell test gear. But that's, yeah, it's a bit of a gamble. But if you want a real specky unit, maybe you might make an offer on that, perhaps. You know, a more obscure model number, there's probably not a lot of people searching for that particular model number. But as I said, set up an eBay search term, do your research. Take a long time to do your research, but once you figure out those model numbers, you can set up watch alerts so you get emailed as instantly when they come up. There's quite a few of those out there. So yeah, I'd be going for maybe one of the more obscure brands, but there you go. There's no reason why, like we saw, like for under $200, you can pick up a 6.5 digit meter. It's well worth it. And it's just a matter of setting up eBay search terms for your specific country, narrowing it down so you don't get a lot of spam email coming from knives and car parts and all sorts of other crap that show up with by some coincidence, the same part number. But also you don't want to miss out on stuff, so you want to have as broad a search term as possible. It's a bit of a trade-off between, you know, getting bombarded with things that don't match and missing out on stuff. As I said, like just a misspelling of multimeter, or calling it DMM instead of multimeter, and stuff like that. There can be lots of there's a lot of art in it. I can't possibly go through every nuance, and it's going to depend on your country. Being here in Australia, really hard to get stuff from eBay US, but I've gotten tons of stuff over the years though. Having said that, but I've put a lot of effort into finding stuff, and if you're patient, just sit there and your email alerts pop up. Bingo, my favorite model's turned up. You might be able to, you know, snap it up really cheap. I forgot to mention, as I said, there is, as far as I'm aware, only one 6.5 digit class handheld multimeter, and that's the Gossen MetroHit 30M. Discontinued, apparently. I didn't know they discontinued that. It's now the MetroHit Ultra. Anyway, I can't find Gossen 30M on eBay at the moment, but you might put the search term on, they pop up. They're generally quite popular, so you might pay a premium for that. Yeah, that's a pretty specky multimeter if you're after a handheld one, but as I said, like the bench ones are just a bit better for this sort of stuff, but it's pretty good. Anyway, I hope that's encouraged you to go out and try and score a 6.5 digit multimeter for your bench. It could be well worth it. Under $200 you might be able to get one for, or you might be willing to pay double that. And it's just a matter of being patient, setting up the correct search terms, knowing how to search for, and often the more obscure commercial auction houses that get these massive lots, because you might get a lot less competition on there. Sometimes they might have 20, 30, the same model multimeter or oscilloscope on there, and well, it's fantastic. You can often score a lot of bargains, but you may not get shipping. You might have to be local and stuff like that. Anyway, hope that's helped you. And as I said, if you know of any really good commercial surplus house websites that you score stuff from, please leave it in the comments down below. And also over on the EEVblog forum, which is the preeminent, not toot my own horn here, but the EEVblog forum is the preeminent test equipment discussion forum on the interwebs. Like, no doubt about it. And this multimeter spreadsheet is just brilliant. But as I said, not actually fully comprehensive. There's stuff on there we found that wasn't listed. So anyway, hope you found it useful. Sorry about the length. Catch you next time.